We'll start there with our good friend David Nixon. And yeah, I'm pulling out the English accent once again. David, what's your bold prediction for this huge BYU sports weekend?
Yeah, BYU sweeps it all and dominates. Just put it that way.
Okay, win
all
for everyone.
We failed to mention women's basketball opens up with a tough non-conference game at South Dakota State.
Yeah, it's always a tough one on the road there. So hopefully get a win there.
What do you think from the what do you think the Jackrabbits will bring tonight in that? Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Breaking down the film, I think
David Nixon.
Hey, that'll be on AFR Tuesday, breaking down the women's basketball game.
Jackrabbits and the
Jackrabbits. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. David Nixon on BYU Sports Nation. All right, David, it's the blackout tomorrow. BYU has a chance to get bowl eligible and do it for a 10th consecutive season. There have been varied opinions on what that means for the program and for BYU. And, you know, we're so used to going to bowl games. Should we appreciate the fact that BYU is going to a bowl game, and we think they will, for a 10th consecutive year more than we're giving it its due credit?
100%. Believe me, I was part of that 2003 team where we had incredible talent, but we somehow managed not to get to a bowl game. And it's tough to end your season, you know, with the last game of the season and knowing, well, at that point, we didn't know, even if we would have beat Utah in 2003, we still wouldn't have gone to a bowl game. I think we're, 4-8 or something. But I think BYU fans have definitely started to take it for granted. I mean, bowl games are special, and you look at it, only the top teams get to participate in those bowl games. So no doubt becoming bowl eligible, even though, once again, the season hasn't been what I think all BYU fans hoped it would be. It's still obviously impressive to be one of those top teams that's invited to go to a bowl game. And
there's some rich storylines in this game. Obviously, Blake Decker, a return missionary who tried to make BYU's team twice in 09 and 13 and didn't. I want to read a quote and then get your reaction to this. He said, "I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some personal relevance there, that there wasn't a little fire and added motivation after walking out of the coach's office telling me I was never going to play there." BYU has these kinds of stories because it's a program that has some history.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if I was in Blake Decker's shoes, I would think the same thing. I mean, if you've been told you can't do something and then you go to another university and show and demonstrate that you can, to get another crack at the team that originally told you couldn't, I mean, man, I don't think there's any more added motivation there. So, yeah, I can see where he's coming from. But you're right, BYU. You hear these stories, all the time. You hear about BYU losing kids to other universities that wanted to come to BYU, but you got to remember, per class each year, you only have, approximately, give or take a few, 20 kids that can come in on a certain recruiting class, and people ask, well, why didn't you get that D tackle or that star wide receiver? Well, because BYU was loaded at that position maybe that year, and they really couldn't take on another receiver. It just didn't fall with the numbers. They needed maybe more D linemen because they're very thin, or then of course you throw in the whole missionary program and guys coming and going and having to juggle those. So, you look at Blake Decker and as far as just walking on, things like that, they just apparently at the time probably didn't need a quarterback. They had enough depth, and it is what it was. But no doubt it's tough because he's obviously gone on and thrown for over 2,400 yards this season, and thrown for 10 touchdowns. He's obviously very capable, and so it's tough when you see kids like that go to the universities and you kind of have that buyer's remorse and the fact that, man, maybe we shouldn't have, I guess it'd be more seller's remorse and the fact that you shouldn't have let him go. But it's one of those things where you got to take your team, what you've got, and the card you've been dealt, and go forward with them.
Facts. Christian Stewart greater than Blake Decker. I'm just going to say that. David Nixon on BYU Sports Nation with this former BYU linebacker, spent 4 years in the NFL as well. David, let's talk about alternate uniforms. It's become this crazy trend within major college football now. BYU will wear the blackout uniforms tomorrow. What is your favorite uniform combination for the BYU Cougars right now?
Man, putting aside all the records that come along with each, uniform combo, and I know all the downside. I personally, I like the white on white. That's
okay.
My gig. Listen, the royal blue, it's hard to go wrong with that.
Yeah.
But, I feel like if BYU's going to go royal blue, they should go with the actual throwback jerseys. Nike still kind of keeps – yeah, Nike kind of keeps the jerseys like the current Nike fabric and everything. Go with the actual throwback ones. Then you got something special.
Here's the issue with that. They're too loose. Like today, they're like uber tight. Like,
okay, so
like
maybe
if it was a shirt, it'd be admonished.
You could tie them up a little bit, but I'm saying that the same designs and I don't know. You can make it work. No, but listen, you know, people who listen to the BYU pre and post game show, countdown to kickoff, know where I'm coming from on this one. Brian Kill and I were in Bronco's office literally weekly trying to convince him to at least go, you know, blue on blue for a home game or white on white or whatever. And we never, ever got him to even budge. Every time he'd refer to tradition, spirit, and honor and say, not a chance. And so to see these guys having like different combo uniforms like almost every week, like looking almost like Oregon, it makes Kill and I sick to our stomachs because we just, you know, if we could have had that, our swag factor would have been out the roof.
Here's the issue. You did not write an open letter.
Oh, my goodness.
Had you written an open letter, you would have had everyone's attention.
That's a good point. I think the open letter is obviously becoming a trend, so maybe we'll maybe we should start that trend earlier, I guess.
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation previewing UNLV. The Cougars are a 26-point favorite, David. What do you expect tomorrow in the blackout game that could become a whiteout game because snow's in the forecast?
True statement. No, it's gonna be chilly. But obviously BYU is used to that type of weather and things. But when you go to the game, you know, I think if you were to say BYU be a 26-point favorite, you know, maybe 3 weeks ago, I think a lot of people might question it. I think BYU coming off the dominant defensive performance that they had against Middle Tennessee State, I think this team's got a lot of confidence, and not only defensively but offensively. When you're an offensive unit, you see your defense performing the way they did in that game, getting multiple 3-and-outs and getting stops, creating turnovers. Man, it's exciting for both sides of the ball. And so, like I said, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would almost, you know, take UNLV on the under for the fact that you know, 26 points. I didn't know if BYU could really open that big of a margin, but I like that. I like that spread. I think BYU could cover that. And you know, once again, this defense can play the way they did against Middle Tennessee State. I think they have a great shot at coming out there and you know, getting that ball back in the offense side of the offense hands and letting them create. So, you know, I'm just excited. I think more guys will come back from injury. I think this is a good week to heal for this last, you know, 3-4 game stretch. And I'm excited to kind of see what product they bring out there on the field tomorrow.
There's a 40% chance of precipitation, 10-mile-an-hour winds, maybe snow, maybe rain. Does that change BYU's game plan at all? I know BYU wants to pass it a lot with Christian Stewart. Does that change anything?
You know, a little bit. I think the weather factor is always more of a game time decision, right? I mean, I think you can anticipate stuff, but you never know if it's going to start falling in the second quarter, third quarter. So it's one of those things that's an in-game adjustment that, man, it's dumping. We need to hand it off more, or, you know, whatever it may be. Sometimes the snow is falling, but it's not sticking, you know, and so it's one of those things you kind of have to fill out during the game. But I think prior to the game, there's no reason to really get caught up in it because obviously those conditions can change within, you know, minutes. But, you know, as players, you obviously can't stress about it either. It's just one of those things you anticipate it, knowing it might come. It's going to be cold, but you obviously got a job to do, and you got to go out there and play ball. But you know, once again, I think these guys are excited to be back home. Once again, coming off a great performance, come off a bye week where they're healthy, and to kind of go out there and show what this kind of revamped and renewed team looks like, and once again, hopefully have a strong finish here throughout the stretch.
They certainly want to create a winning culture heading into next year's schedule, and I'm going to quote your tweet from yesterday, David. You said this: the BYU schedule next season is the exact reason why the Y went independent. Nebraska, Michigan, UCLA, and Mizzou, I accept. What was your initial reaction to BYU adding Missouri to an already tough schedule?
Man, I was stoked. I mean, you throw on an SEC team. I mean, you look at the different conferences BYU is playing next year. I mean, you've got Big Ten. You've obviously still got the Mountain West.
Pac-12, American.
Pac-12. You really touch base on all the conferences across the country. And I love BYU going out there. And if you go look at the standings in the SEC, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just Mizzou. No, Mizzou's the top-rated team in the East, in the SEC East right now.
Yeah.
And so they're not playing a slouchy SEC team. This is the top team in the East, and you know, with teams of Georgia and Florida. I mean, they're the top guys right now. So I don't know if it'll be that way towards the end of the season, but that's currently how it stands. So I think it's a great matchup, and you know, to play an SEC team. I mean, that's something that a lot of teams here in the West can't say. A lot of them tend to you know, get some cupcake schedules and then play within their conference. So I like what BYU is doing. I like it a lot. And, I've already, when I tweet that out, I got a lot of responses from people all across the country saying, yeah, I live here in Indiana and I get to see BYU 3-4 games this year. And I think the fans really appreciate the outreach that Tom Hummel and this BYU program is trying to get, and kind of getting outside of the western side of the country and really get more exposure back east and in the Midwest. So I like the matchup. I like BYU's chances. And like I said, as a player, man, I mean, this is, far beyond better than going to Laramie or to Albuquerque. This is, I mean, or even Fort Collins. I mean, this is what college football is all about. You get to go play in big venues. And of course, a lot of people are saying, well, when is it going to translate to home games? We saw that last year with Texas. Texas came back and paid back the visit. And these teams here will here in the future. But once again, that's scheduling independence. You've got to pay your dues at the beginning to get the big names on your schedule. And then, of course, they'll be all paid back later. So I love it. And believe me, if I had my choice, I would have definitely picked that type of schedule over the Mountain West Conference schedule any day of the week.
Now, we explored in the trending topic some comments from the Missouri Associate Athletic Director and a comment from Bronco to Spencer alluding to the possibility of one more game switched for BYU. If BYU added someone decent, someone, I don't even know, like let's say it's Cincinnati or above, would it be too much for next year's schedule? Is there a point where you get diminishing returns with that schedule, David?
I have
problem.
to agree. I thought about it. I think there is. I think there's a point where you have to balance your schedule and all of a sudden throw all these big dogs on. And I mean, that's the battle is week in, week out. You're facing these guys that do have the Big 12 or Pac-12 depth, and BYU, in opinion, you're still gaining that depth, right? I think through independence, BYU's recruiting has improved. But it's still trying to improve and get up to that level. I mean, you saw what happened with Utah when they first went into the Pac-12. They struggled the first few years, and finally that depth, I think, is catching up for them. And you're seeing the results on the field. I think the same thing is with BYU. Once they start going independent and they start getting more recruits throughout the country, that depth is still building. And so to throw a heavy schedule on next year and maybe change maybe one of the easier games for BYU for a more difficult, it's a good question. I mean, we've seen this year with injuries. What can happen, when you do play. We had a heavy first part of the schedule when we were playing, big teams like Virginia and Texas, and even Connecticut, not so much, but, or Houston. But we had some big-time guys where a lot of guys went down because you are facing bigger, faster guys, and so your body is more prone to get banged up. So, I don't know. At the same time, it's tough as a fan to sit there and say, no, I wouldn't want a tougher schedule because
right, yeah.
It's fun to watch it. But I remember my senior year, Coach Reynolds, we were sitting there working out, and it was towards the end of my senior year, and we were looking forward to the next year. I was going to be gone, but that was the year they were going to play Oklahoma in the first game. And I remember Coach Reynolds he's kind of scared. He goes, look, first game of the year against Oklahoma, I mean, there's a chance we get a lot of guys banged up, and, man, we still got 11 games after that to worry about. And I think it's a real worry amongst coaches. Because there's no doubt that when you play those big-time opponents, you're playing bigger guys and more athletic guys, and you're obviously then more prone to get injured. And so that's something BYU has to be cautious with. And the schedule is what it is now, but to keep loaded on, yeah, you might have to proceed with a little bit more of caution.